find your power source and all that, but for the talk you probably won't be needing that. Probably later in the afternoon when we do code labs, possibly you might need that. So how many of you are outside Bangalore? Can you just raise your hands up? Oh, great. First let me thank you all by taking time from your busy schedule and actually showing up over here. I mean, I guess it's difficult to travel, and you made it from your busy schedule on Saturday, so thanks. So with that, we'll get started. So today's talk is going to be on Google desktop gadgets, access, share, and personalize information, as you're aware from the agenda. And let me first start with this, introductory slide. So before I get started, my name is Rajesh Chandrasekharan. I work as a developer in Google, and on a lot of the infrastructure that is actually backing up these gadgets that I'm going to talk to you. And I'm really excited that to be here and among you all and talk about gadgets in general. So how many of you all actually are familiar with gadgets or use gadgets at all? Okay. And how many of that is actually desktop gadgets? Okay, so that's more or less what I expected. So it doesn't matter. So today anyhow we'll cover some aspects of what is a gadget and exactly what's involved. So you don't need any context. We'll give you the introduction, and we'll also set you up for where you need to take things forward. So it's okay. I mean, even if you're non-technical, we can, the target audience, anybody should be able to build gadgets. That's the idea. So what is all this fuss about gadgets? You can see some of these articles talking about saying, widgets are absolutely where the action is today. And a lot of startups see enormous opportunities. You can see Omalik's quote, and then you have Newsweek quote saying that user-generated content was the hallmark of 2006, and it's a fair bet in 2007. So some of these things are a little bit old, but what is interesting to note is while these were the trends, we actually see that it has been true that the number of gadgets that we've had in the gallery have sort of gone up from the order of several hundreds to several thousands. And we continue to see that momentum around gadgets. So we think, this is another exciting year where we'll have a lot more gadgets. And hopefully once you all leave, you'll go back with your enthusiasm, newfound enthusiasm, and go back and develop gadgets for the Indian audience. And we're hoping, we can push India and show a lot of interesting content from India. So that's where I'm hoping, this audience is that taking things forward. So what is in the agenda? We will have a quick introduction to what desktop gadgets are. Since we've been talking about gadgets, we need to define what it is, and also why we actually need to be building it, like what's in it for you, what's the value proposition. Obviously you all want to know why you should be spending your valuable time building gadgets. And then we'll do a deep dive into looking at the basic gadget, which is about implementing like the rudimentary gadget, and then we'll also see some advanced APIs which will show you some of the more powerful features, and we'll point you to some developer resources to follow up and take things forward, and finally we'll wind up with some key takeaways. So throughout the talk I'll try to take you through this journey of gadgets, but at the same time I request that in the spirit of keeping the talk moving, we take the Q&A at the end. We'll have some time for that, and please feel free to ask your questions in the end. So what is exactly a Google gadget when we talk about gadget? Gadgets are specialized mini applications that either can run in a web page or on the desktop. So in a very general sense, it is something that can get you information and you can sort of present it. And so at Google, we have something used to be called universal gadgets a while back, but we have basically web-based gadgets, and we have desktop gadgets. So this talk is more about desktop gadgets, and the difference is that the web-based gadgets run obviously in the web, and you don't need any downloads. You basically run it in the browser, and they are written with HTML and JavaScript. So here's an example, of some gadgets that you can see over here. To your left-hand side says Saturday, October 18th. And on the right-hand side, you can see you have like desktop gadgets which run on the desktop. They have slightly different functionality in that they can work online, offline, and they're trying to get you local content that's actually in a desktop. They are similar in that instead of HTML and JavaScript, you would have XML and JavaScript. And here's like an example, showing like the weather gadget, very popular one, which shows, Bangalore and the temperature of Bangalore, right? So now that I've just given you like a very basic introduction and I'm just talking about gadgets, I think it's time for those people who have not used Google Desktop, to actually show you what is it that I'm actually talking about, so that you have a little context on the rest of the talk, which sort of goes on a deep dive. So with that, let me actually pull up Google Desktop and walk you through some of the basic features. So on my desktop over here, I have a shortcut to Google Desktop. If you've installed Google Desktop from our site, you'll get a shortcut on the desktop. You can, it's already running, so let me right click and maximize that up here. So here's a plus which basically gives you add gadgets dialog, which lets you look at the repository of all the gadgets we have available for you today. And if you look at all, you can see about 12 cross 119. These are the number of gadgets that are available for you to choose from. So just to demo, let me add like a few popular gadgets. So let's say we had like the flower pot, right? Here's the weather globe gadget which you saw earlier. So as you can see, it's got an incremental search dialog. You can basically search for any information, and if that information is present in the gadgets, you'll basically get the corresponding gadgets. And we can do some speech. Let's say that, and let's add a game gadget.
New York Times 1 hour ago by Michael Cooper and Michael Powell by Annie the Stranger Tale, Joy the Plumber and Full Lady North Campaign Trail Friday when Senator John McCain used a volley here to defend the Ohio man who made a national star
online
by focusing on the Millwood Downs morning news.
At the background, if you just want to hear the news, then this will
Click to register the gadget. It is fast and simple.
And we can also say
Happy Diwali in the web.
Right. So let's just dock this particular gadget. So as you can see, these gadgets can be in the sidebar. That's why they get added by default. We can also undock them from the sidebar. You can collapse. You can have like different views. So like, for example, this particular gadget over here, the weather gadget, you can collapse the content here. And if you want, you can zoom it. Like you can have like a 125%, depending on how you want to actually have it set up on your desktop. And we can remove a couple of them. And if I do shift, basically, let me just minimize this thing. Yeah. I think it's probably turned off. Yeah. The gadgets go to the background, and you can hit shift again. And there's also the sticky keys which is conflicting with this thing, but basically you can have it sort of go away and come back. So for example, one common use, you can always have this running and your gadgets in the background, and let's say you want to look at some news or some information, you can just either put it to the foreground once you're done and then bring it to the background and then bring it to the foreground, and makes it easy for you to do other activity so that the gadgets can be running and you can sort of immediately context switch and switch back and get back to whatever you're doing. So that's a very convenient feature. So apart from that, let me just bring up the sidebar view. You can see these gadgets can also be set to be always on top, which means if I like bring up a browser or something, you can see you can have it on top, and we can turn that off. So a lot of people prefer having the gadgets docked. So I also kind of like to see them docked so that they sort of not in the way. And in the docked view, they sort of have their own life. So this is sort of, in a nutshell, how users typically use gadgets and how you can use the gallery to navigate, find the gadgets that you want of your choice. And then I'll show you during the deep dive some more advanced, like maybe playing a game or something like that, and how that actually works out. So now you saw what a gadget looks like, but you want to know why is it that you want to spend your time, which is a very valid question. Your time is valuable. And the primary reasons are now the target audience that you can reach using gadgets used to be millions, but it's really tens of millions of users. That's a huge user base that you have. And given that you have such a big user base, and if you have a lot of content that you can distribute, then from a business point of view, from the value proposition, to actually go in and target that audience, you can basically, if you have content and you want to increase traffic to your sites, this gives you like a fantastic opportunity to have your gadget and showcase some of that content over here. So once you've targeted and you build that loyal user base, you can, from the business point of view, that's a lot of value in terms of being able to being a target. Apart from that, from developer point of view, users basically have also value to use our gadgets. You have like native UI, which means you have like Windows kind of widgets, and we have all the forms and the controls, and you can have like crisp looking. You can see when you look at all these gadgets, you can see they look like Windows apps, and so you can have or the native platform is what I mean, because we just for those Mac and Linux lovers, we also have gadgets now on those platforms. So the native OS and widgets, you can actually show that. And apart from that, all of them also have like rich APIs. So you can do things like you can have multiplayer games. You can have communication APIs. If you want to build social networking sort of gadgets, you can sort of do that. And the rich UI client tab, you can do things like animation, drag and drop, zoom, transparency effects. So that gives you like very rich UI that you can use. And the third reason why you would want to use that is it lets you always stay connected and to the latest information. So for example, you can have RSS feeds, the videos, the latest video streaming stuff. You can also have look at your CPU, memory usage, network meters, quick launches you can have, and to-do lists. So these are all reasons to increase your productivity and sort of stay connected to the latest information. And lastly, the unique thing about Google Desktop is it lets you personalize the information. So a very good use case is, let's say you're going to a particular site, let's say news.com, and I can try to demo that for you. The web clips gadget will show you all the feeds that are coming, and you can configure. So as you visit websites and we find that there are sites that have interesting feeds for you, we'll recommend those for you. And so that is a value add in that it's personalizing things for you. If you also, when we see like things like zip code, we can sort of say, okay, here's the weather gadget, and then it can sort of say you're at this particular location. So that's like the personalization. Apart from that, when the add gadgets dialog that I actually showed to you, you can see that we recommend gadgets based on your interests. So as you start using the system and it's a local client learns more about you, it'll recommend gadgets per your taste. And so that's like the value add that apart from just having widgets. So this was pretty much what I covered, and let's get into the deep dive of implementing a gadget. So what exactly goes into a gadget? I'm sure we have spoken about it and described it. The gadget itself is basically XML and JavaScript. So it is just a zip archive with a .gg extension. So which means that you can use your favorite zip utility and look at just explode it and open it up. And what we'll talk about is what is actually in the contents of this particular file. You don't have to worry so much about so much of the details, because later on I'll show you the designer who is going to take away all of these gory details. So this is just for developers who are trying to learn more about that, to know what is in it. So to start with, we'll talk about the high-level things, what is there, and then I'll show you what is goes into the contents of each one of these. So bear with me on that. So there is a main.xml file which basically describes the UI objects and the layouts and the event handlers, and that sort of if you're coming to your master, you're trying to describe your widget, you want to describe that in somewhere over here. I'll show you that in the next page. Then you have your JavaScript code, which lives in a bunch of JS files, like this main.js, utils.js. You can have utilities. You can have manifest for the gadget, where you can specify the gadget author, metadata information, other information. For example, you might be able to say version of Google Desktop that it should work on. And finally, not finally, but you have a localization. People who want to internalize do internationalization of their software can target multiple locales. So you'll say en/strings.xml, fr/strings.xml. Thereby you can target other regions if you want to go global. And I don't have here as an example, but you can also do, you could say HRs HI for Hindi. And so if you want to target, I think that's only in Indian language we support at this point, but that can evolve depending on the cool stuff that you guys hopefully will go and create. So you can add that. And then lastly, you have basically your icons, your fonts, and other information that you want to bundle. So let's look at each of these. So now we spoke about main.xml. So if you take a very simple example, the view that you see on top specifies in pixels the width and height of what is the area occupying the gadget. And then the specifics. So the view is like the top level container, where all the widgets that you'll specify, like your div, edit, button, checkbox that you see, would be inside that. So that's like the form in some sense, like a canvas if you want to think of it that way. And so you have here script source equal to main.js, which says where is the JavaScript code, which we'll look at next, which will handle the behaviors that I'm specifying over here. So in this example, you can see we have a label over here, which is center aligned, and it is enabled. Then there's a handler saying on text click, and the label says hello world. So this has not been localized. We'll see how to localize that in the next few slides. But and this APIs basically let you do things like positioning, rotating, drag and drop, opacity, visibility, other things, and you can handle mouse and keyboard events. So here you can see there's an on-click event, and we'll have like a on-text click handler for that. So once you have your UI described, the next thing you want to do is you want to have JavaScript code to actually do something in reaction to that. So you saw on the previous slide, we had said on text click is the handler for that UI label when you click on that. So when you click on that particular thing, we have this view.alert, a shortcut. So it will basically bring up like a message box. You can say hello developers, right? And so at this point we are talking about APIs. So I just want you to know that our APIs are very rich. We do things like we allow you access to graphics, system level APIs. You can store content, storage, communication APIs, media APIs, search, debug. So there's a whole list of APIs which you can look up on the documentation when you go. Some of these things I will talk about in a little bit more detail, but we have very rich APIs. So once you have your JavaScript and your UI is done, then we mentioned to internationalize for multiple languages, and you can see here that French and we have like two cultures over here where you can see messages that are described here. So the way you would access these messages, you would say like ampersand and then give the name of this message. So I think I'm not sure there's an example. Let me see if there is one. Yeah. And lastly, we have the manifest information where every gadget has to have like a unique identifier, which is a GUID. So you don't have to worry about the gory details of this. The designer that we'll demonstrate will put this for you. But it also tells you who the author is, what is the name of the gadget, and you can have like a nice icon for the gadget. So, and it tells you like here, there's a minimum version of, it is like 5. So if you don't have the corresponding Google desktop, the gadget will actually prompt you to upgrade to that version of desktop. And lastly, you just, once you have this, all you need to do is to zip it, and with the GG extension, and we are done. We pretty much ship it. So here's how the designer looks like. I will be giving you a demo of this, and let's do the demo now. So you can see over here there's a GD SDK folder that I have. This essentially, if you go to our site and you download our SDK and you unzip it, this is the folder into which it's unzipped. So this is the GD SDK zip file you get, which gets unzipped into that folder. And you can see there's an API, and there are a bunch of folders. There's miss, samples, tools. So the samples comes with a lot of samples that you can actually play with for the gadget. So it helps you quickly bootstrap, and the common patterns that we have, you can see that. And so under the tools folder, we have this designer underscore en.exe, which is the Gadget Designer, which is trying to simplify a lot of the gory details that I actually mentioned, which is to try to manage the manifest. So let's run that. So let me open this. So this, I just pulled up one of these samples, and I've just opened that, and you can see here it says ampersand, click here, right? And these here are all the strings. You can do localization by saying either 1033 for English, or you can set en and strings.xml. So you can see like all these strings, like I spoke about localization, I didn't say I had an example, but here's the example that so you can see like gadget name, description, and all that is over here. And the designer makes it very easy for you to just look at, this is the form, I'll just show you the form, which is over here. Yeah, so this is the form that we have, the master page, and you can basically add, all these elements on top. You see the div, image, button, all these things can be added. I don't want to steal away the thunder from the code lab, so I will not talk about too many of these things, because the code lab will actually go to show you and in more detail some of these things. And you can see like the properties on this side, where my mouse is over here, you can actually go and change the properties. I'm sure you have seen many editors like that, so you're familiar with that. And let's pull up the source view of this, where you can see the same code that we described. So now you can see there's an ampersand click underscore here. And this is how, if you wanted to specify a localized string, in the earlier slide I didn't show you that because I was just trying to get you introduced to what the content looks like, but this is how you do it. And let's look at the JavaScript code, and this is a JavaScript code that is actually binding to that widget, those set of widgets. And to run it is very simple. You just hit F5, right? And then if I say click here, the gadget is up and running. So it's as simple as that. It's very easy, and all of this information, like you see, this manifest and all that is managed by when you go and say file new project over here, it's all managed by that. So you might have to basically just come and tweak and add a little bit of information here, and you can see ampersand gadget description. You can basically localize it and put your information. So it's as simple as that. So it's very easy to get started to just build a gadget. So as you saw, it's easy to experiment with the WYSIWYG interface, and you can prototype, debug, and test the gadget. I didn't show you that, but the code lab will show you some of those things in more detail, and you generate basically a GG package. So that was the demo. So now that we've looked at the demo of that, let's look at some of the more advanced stuff. You guys are now experts at sort of the very basic creation of the Hello World gadget, but I'm sure most of you all want to go beyond that and do something more fancy. So we'll look at some of the advanced APIs. Primarily, I'll try to cover 3 of them, which I think are fairly powerful. First is the communication API. So what is this communication API giving us? It gives us a way to do inter-gadget communication and using the Google Talk framework. So this opens up, a wide set of possibilities where you can build multiplayer games, social networking gadgets. You can track people. You can probably share content. There's a lot of possibilities that actually open up, and I'll show you what the code of this looks like, which is over here, where you basically have to write very few lines of code to basically get access to all your friends. So on the top, pane among the 2 panes over here, you can see there is this list of friends. Provided you're logged in, you have the list of friends in Google Talk who show up as an array, and then you can basically, if they are online, you can send some information to them using the send API. And on the receiving side, all you need to do is to have a handler which can basically get the information. And so this is like the basic rudimentary communication, and whatever you want to build on top of that, it's your creativity. You can just, once you have the basic connectivity, you can just go ahead and build that. So that said, I think one of the things is to see it in action. We want to see some gadgets that are actually using that. So we will try to demo a small game, and we have James over here in the audience who's decided to join us from Mountain View, has flown up all the way for this event, who's part of the Google team. And we will try to, hopefully it will work, and we will try to demonstrate we'll try to play a game. Okay, so here we have already added this game, and I'm going to click on multiplayer. I can see among my list of online friends, James, who's sitting over there with his, and is ready to play a game, is ready to challenge me to a game of reverse, or actually I'm trying to challenge him to a game of reverse. So I invite him, and say yes, and then, so I don't know, this doesn't have status, I guess, but he's accepted. So if I start playing over here, yes, okay, so he's played back. So that shows you like the basic communication API. So and the power that you can have. So imagine you have millions of people who are using this infrastructure, and if you can build like ecosystems of gadgets that talk, it opens up a lot of possibilities. So again, the creativity is really up to you guys, whatever you want to, how you want to take it forward. So the next advanced API is the querying API, which lets you find information by searching for terms in the index. So we know that this is Google Desktop. The gadgets are really with with Google Desktop, and we have an index. And so one of the power that comes with having an index is obviously search is like the big thing that you can do. So we share that with you. We expose APIs to be able to get to that content. So some popular gadgets that actually use that is GD Music, and there's a touring touring gadget. So let me talk a little bit more about GD Music. So what it does is once you have a lot of media on your on your desktop, once you have it indexed, you can basically look at information in that index, and then you can provide search on that. So the API itself looks like this. So for example, you want to create a music list, and we pick up a popular music artist, like I really like Sean, and I want to look up Sean's music. And so you can basically use the query API. So this just shows the snippets, and once you get the results, then you can iterate over that, and you can look at the schema and say, like we said, we are trying to create a music list. So once we populate that, and then you can present that to the user, and once they click on that, then you can play the. So this is basically one of the pieces of the puzzle to build look at the querying APIs and possible opportunities to build in that space. And the last API that I'm going to talk about in the advanced API session is to provide contextual information based on the user's actions. So it could be that you're visiting a web page and then you want to do something, or you're looking for some information. So a very simple example is like for here, we have a event subscriber, and you can subscribe to an event, and then we have a bunch of code, for filters, and basically we want to get notifications on new web pages. So whenever we get a new web page, then we have a handler which has like on new event over here, and you can get to the URI and the HTML content in that. And so again, your possibilities are endless on what you want to do based on that. So you can hook into that or look at that. In fact, that is sort of how we get you some of the RSS feeds, which actually are hooking into the eventing infrastructure, where we say we can recommend, like a web clips actually can recommend feeds for you based on the pages you visit, which actually hooks into the personalization and infrastructure, and basically the eventing infrastructure. So that said, I think you guys are now experts in building gadgets, and hopefully you all have, we will point you to more resources to actually take you to the, get you connected here. So let's look at some of the developer resources. So we have the link to Google Desktop APIs, which basically, if you can't even remember the rest of the links, the first link over here says code.google.com has pointers to all the rest of the links, and I'll probably open it and show it to you. But the resources, the primary things that you want to take away are you have developer groups, we have FAQs, knowledge-based articles, and we have blogs where we publish information, and we basically open source some of our top gadgets so that you have the code to actually build some of the more better gadgets. So let's actually presentations are nice, but I like to look at live pages. So let's actually try to go to that site and look at what is there. Okay, what do you know? It's already here. Okay. So here you can see all these links that I spoke to you about, and once you come to the site, you'll see how do you get started. So basically you can download the SDK, install Google Desktop, and it gives you the instructions to basically get going. And right there you have pointers to docs over here, which shows you all the documentation of the APIs and a lot of the things that we actually spoke about, the search APIs and all that. If you want more deep information about that, it's all over here. And we have pointers to the FAQ over here, and common questions that are asked, like how do I get started developing gadgets. Typically once you get started, then you can move further. Getting started in anything is really the harder thing. So we make it very easy for you all to actually get started. And you can see there's a link over here saying submit software, and if you click on this link, you can actually see this is where you can go and submit your gadgets. So it's very easy. You just follow the simple instructions. You use the designer, create your gadgets. You got a GG file. If you fill up this form, you can basically submit your gadgets. So, and it's very important that you guys, if you're building cool gadgets, that you actually submit them, because the moment you submit them, you saw the ad dialog, and the ad dialog actually showed you like a repository of gadgets. That happens because there are users submitting gadgets and they're going to the gallery, and we periodically push basically the latest list to all the clients. So once you have that list, then those gadgets would show up in the dialog, and the personalization that we spoke about would also try to understand whether these new gadgets are actually interesting to you, and will recommend those based on your past usage. And let me go back here. So we also have blogs here. And you can see there's a blog about today's event, and you're all part of it. So URL news. And lastly, we have pointers to the group. So the groups are useful in sharing information with other developers, as well as so if you have some nice idea that you want to share, you want to collaborate, you can basically get together in the groups. So so that's it. Those were some of the interesting pointers. You can see if you at least if you can't remember the rest of the links, but if you just remember code.google.com/API/desktop, then you have access to pretty much all the information. So like I mentioned here that gadgets get automatically recommended, and let me show you the Hall of Fame. I think that's pretty. Let's actually go here. So here are our top gadget developers. So if you want to become famous, this is your chance. You can become a rock star. A lot of these guys are rock stars in the gadget community, and you can see there are a lot of Indian developers over here. Like I see Bijoy, and I see like a couple of other folks here, Akant here. So it's very exciting for to impact at that level, millions of users, and you get recognized by Google for your efforts, and you sort of can be a rock star over here if that's something that interests you. But let me get back to the slide here. So what are the key takeaways? So we've reached the end of the talk, and I'm just going to sort of highlight what we went through. You can see the gadgets are very easy to develop, easy to install, and we have made sure that the footprint of the gadgets that you actually have is very performant, and so it doesn't take up a lot of your resources. So it's like I think about 200K or 250K per gadget when you add a gadget. So that's and we have at the same time we have powerful APIs that offer you ability to do fairly advanced things, and you get a chance to as a developer to target like millions of users, and in fact tens of millions of users at this point. And lastly, if not that doesn't excite you, then you can become a rock star in the top gadget developer. So so the call to action for you all is really we'd really like to see a lot of India-specific gadgets. I think we have about 50 gadgets right now, but it will be great. This is that audience that actually builds that next set of gadgets for, and basically bootstraps the internet in India, and we have rich content. So then that makes it very exciting, and then we can also go global. So that's it. Before the Q&A, I do have a little secret demo that I haven't showed you yet, which is a little eye candy. If this didn't excite you, I'm sure this particular demo would. So you all are familiar with Lively, and which is the online 3D world where you can create rooms. It's a fairly recent phenomena, and so what's going on here is once you have your gadgets up and running for free, and you get it working in the online world, in the virtual world. And so here you can see like a great example of someone sitting in an island, which is like a room that's created, and then there's basically playing a YouTube video, and there's nothing special you have to do. If you had a gadget that actually did that, so if you had like a clock, and you did some game, or you wanted to maybe Bollywood movies or whatever you had content, then you can suddenly you could actually see like a movie you can click over here. Which I mean, if to some people that could be pretty exciting, but you had your other reasons too. So that said, we are at the end of the talk, and let's reduce the volume of this and leave this running. Any questions? Anybody wanting to know anything? Okay, great. We have a question over there. Okay, so just for the record, I'm going to repeat the question. The question was that you have a lot of different software companies having their own local platform and their own gadget engines. And so what is the interoperability story? So as far as I know, these sort of have evolved on their own over time. So on the web, at least, you see OpenSocial, which is sort of that effort to bring things together. On the desktop, all the engines are trying to do their own optimizations. Like, for example, some of the platforms actually try to go process space, and they make their own localization. Some of them want to be sort of a stripped-down web, and so I guess, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
If you write a Firefox extension, all you have to do is write an XML file and write a JavaScript. And that's what we are also doing here in terms of Google Gadget. Or in the case of Flex application, you might write an MXML file and an action script, which is nothing different from what we do here. So interoperability should be possible. It's just that we need to come up with a couple of standards.
Yeah, so that hasn't happened, and I think it's hard to say what will happen in the future, so I can't really comment on that. But you probably know the reasons as well as I do where the industry goes and how those things happen. So at this point, I don't know of any plans in that space. But I do know, like on the web space, the OpenSocial has been that initiative which is trying to pretty much come together. Just that companies working together. If you look at all the standards out there, in some ways, all the SVG things that you have, they all have their own implementations, right? I mean, you're pretty much aware of that. So it's a tough one to really answer. Yeah. Can you please take the mic? Yeah.
Is there any difference between how gadgets behave between the enterprise edition of Google Desktop and the normal Google Desktop?
Not that I'm aware of. I think they should be more or less the same. Yeah, we have lead from the team, Google Desktop team, who can actually throw more light.
I work in the same team as Rajesh as well. I probably help him with some of the Q&A. Right. So with respect to enterprise edition, probably the main difference is that you have group policies which you can set in your SMS packages so that you can disable certain gadgets or you can disable gadgets features altogether in your network. But beyond that, I think the feature set of specific gadgets are almost the same. So there is no difference in the APIs or anything like that. It's just that in the user-facing side, you have more control from the network administrator's point of view. Yes. That we are allowing specifically because some companies would definitely want such features. For example, if they find a few malicious gadgets or if they think that users are spending more time in entertainment-related stuff and they don't want to, it's basically based on request, right? So this is a standard control policy which most group policy administrators want, and we have been providing that. So it's already available.
What is the security model like? How do you enforce it?
So right now we show it's like ActiveX, but essentially are running XML and JavaScript. So we do have a prompt that comes up saying if it's a third-party gadgets, and if it's a Google gadget, then those are you can trust them. So we are working on improving some of the security model in future releases, but yeah, that's you have it's like ActiveX.
And where is the personalization stored? As in, if I were to customize this gadget, where is it stored over there?
So personalization, I guess, would be on the user profile. So it's all local. We don't store any of this information. None of it is sent to Google or anything, if that's your concern. So that's the primary reason to the client side part of it, right? So you don't have to worry about any of that. It's all with you. It's all your content, and you can delete it. And
The last question I had goes back to the interoperability question. Is there a way to extend the API, the current API?
Yeah, good.
We provide a basic set of APIs which cater for 90% of the use cases. But beyond that, if you do want to do stuff which is not there is always the possibility that you can write native code and use it along with the gadget. So for example, in a web page, you can embed an ActiveX, or you can embed a Firefox plugin, or a browser plugin to extend what it can do. Similarly, in a desktop gadget, you can write native code. You can compile it as a control or a library and distribute it as part of the gadget itself and call it from the JavaScript. So that functionality is already available, and we probably didn't explain it in this demo, but maybe if you are more interested in that, we can talk about it offline, and I can point to some docs on that. And there are also very good examples in the SDK itself showing how you can use native code along with the gadget. It might not be cross-platform compatible because the native code which you write will be platform specific.
I have a question on.
Okay. Question on the right hand side. Yeah. Go ahead. Okay. Someone pass on the mic to him. Yeah.
Having understood that gadget is the plug-and-table functionality, what is the difference between a widget and a gadget?
So this is just names used by different providers. That's all.
Is this a name difference?
Yeah, it's just a name
This
difference.
is marketing. Yeah.
So is there anything like gadget? Oh no, what I mean to say is the gadget can be played in desktop as well as in web platform.
Okay.
Or widget
So
can happen only in web.
no, there is nothing like that. But since you asked, you can use desktop gadgets in a web page, and this is one of the unique functionalities which Google Gadgets provides.
Oh,
So
you mean to say it can operate on web?
yes. So for example, most of the gadgets which you saw today, the multiplayer game and music player or anything like that, the weather globe, they can be used within web pages. Today we support using only within the iGoogle page, where you can add web-based widgets. But there have been many requests from developers to embed these gadgets in their own web pages as well. So we are looking into that, but that is one of the key features which we support, and vice versa. So you can take web-based iGoogle gadgets and use it on the desktop as well. This is something unique to the Google Desktop product. No other gadget platform allows this kind of interoperability yet.
Is it that like we can develop only a small functionality for a gadget, or can have any?
No. So most of the gadgets which you saw today are kind of focused on one particular task. Like the game is probably the most complex thing which you saw. Nothing more than that. But there is really no reason why you shouldn't create more complicated gadgets. So for example, we have seen even financial management packages written as gadgets. So I can actually, I'm not sure whether this machine has it, but we can probably look it up in the online directory. There is an entire financial management package which is actually written as a gadget. You can enter your daily expenses, and it will give you reports and all that. So there is no.
Say even CRM application kind of that sort of application can also be created.
Yes, it is. In most cases, it is desirable to have the bulk of the back-end implementation in a server and have the gadget as a front end to the actual application. That makes it more easy to upgrade and add new features without having the user to download the gadget for every single upgrade.
It's like I can say it's more or less similar to that there are a lot of libraries like Dojo available in the web,
Right.
So I can create a couple of pieces in the backend and
Exactly. Yeah. So that is yeah. Exactly. So that is definitely possible. You can build, for example, there is another talk going on describing how to use App Engine. So you can use App Engine along with the desktop gadget. So we recently published an article in the App Engine developer page showing how to use these two. So there is no reason why you can't build more complicated gadgets. It's just that people who have been creating gadgets so far have been only exploring the very basic feature set.
So we have a Gmail gadget, which actually is probably one of the more advanced things, which gives you all the functionality of that as a gadget. So that's fairly more involved than more basic gadgets that you saw.
Say for example, we have in our company we have a internet application. We would like to have a say, or I would like to create a social networking gadget.
briefly mentioned about submitting the software to our gallery, right? So that is to reach users outside your company, outside your network. If you want to deploy a gadget within your network, we don't need to do anything special. Develop the gadget and push it through your network SMS or whatever tool you have to push software to every machine. So you just need to.
Yeah. So the point is that the gallery that you see, the ad that need not show it. I mean, it's a gadget can run. You can if you build your gadget and double click on that, that will run. So if you have way to push it, then it should work.
Good accommodation, right? I mean, like you might have to have some kind of configuration stuff, like what exactly these stores here is, like what are the properties being. Say for example, I think we are used to the wiki application Google Map, right? So you guys have a couple of I think the Java jar file for that. Then you have some properties which can literally talk to the I mean Google Map and make those.
Right. All this data is already will be part of the gadget package itself. So the compressed package, the zip file
Zip
which
file.
we talked about in the presentation, everything gets put into the zip file, and you just distribute that one particular zip file renamed as a .gg extension.
So the manifest or whatever that you're saying, it's inside. It's not outside. So whatever configuration you want to do, you can have that bootstrap itself. It doesn't.
So everything will be done by the gadget itself.
Yeah.
So if
I can even create a page with I mean a lot of all those gadgets that we create ourselves. Right? Say I create all those.
You can have your own intranet gallery of gadgets also. That is fine.
Yes.
Create all those whatever I want.
That is fine.
Yep.
You can
Yeah.
host your gadgets within your company and just have your own employees use it. All that is fine.
I mean, all it gives you is discoverability with the dialog if you submit to the gallery. If you have a way to discover it outside of that, maybe with a link or something on your intranet, you can click on that and download. That will also work. It just gives you a way for other people to discover. It's like that's only yeah.
Thank you. Like, in the case of Firefox, if you want to add, in the case of Firefox, if you want to add an extension, it is possible for you to drag and drop an XPI into your, extensions console. So is it possible for you to do that?
So here, if you have Google Desktop installed and you visit a web page which has a link to a .gg file, you click on the link, it will get added to the gallery. So Google Desktop handles the .gg extension.
Right.
So you download like a regular file and it will automatically get added to the gallery.
I have
Not gallery,
this
to the sidebar.
To the sidebar.
very specific question though. I mean, these are going to be downloaded on some client machines, right? And then in terms of distribution, there can be millions of distributors.
Right.
So how do we manage, versions? Is there an auto update kind of a feature?
Right. So in the very recent release of Google Desktop, which was done a month ago, auto updates are supported for gadgets. So you can submit a gadget to our gallery once and then change your gadget wherever you are storing it, and it will be automatically picked up by our system whenever you change it. So
then can I monetize, let's say, an upgraded gadget?
monetization is today managed by the gadget itself. There are a few shareware gadgets already available where they provide limited functionality when the user hasn't really signed up for the service, and when they sign up they can provide more advanced functionality. So that is done by the gadgets. The platform
Functionality which would be implemented, let's say, by the gadget.
by the gadget. The platform doesn't provide any monetization specific APIs or functionality or framework today. So it only provides a way to create gadgets and distribute gadgets. It doesn't provide a way to tag certain gadgets as shareware, certain gadgets as freeware, and let users upgrade from one to the other. All that is done by the gadget itself. So you basically I'm not sure if we can show that. There are a few shareware gadgets which do this.
We can't promote it.
It's still controlled within the live widget itself.
Yes, it is not. It is controlled by the widget itself. Yes.
Any plans to provide?
I mean, if you have specific requests, I think we can definitely talk about it. Maybe you can describe a use case. You can have a chat after the session.
So I forgot to introduce the team. We actually have members from the team sitting over here and sitting in the back, and Satish is like the leader. We can have a conversation and any things that you guys think should be added or any feedback here.
I think there's a question over there.
Yeah, a very quick question. Is session management automatically built in the gadgets?
You mean storing and reading back the data, the persistence of data?
Yeah, with the server.
With the server. So communication with the server is managed by the gadget itself.
Okay.
So we provide APIs to do the network requests. If you have written web pages which use network requests, you'll be familiar with the XML HTTP request, which is the object used to make the request and get the response back. So the same object is available in the desktop gadget. So you can use that to communicate with the server, and the data which you retrieve locally, you can store it locally and read it back whenever the user closes and reopens your gadget.
Okay, meaning to say, if there is a login kind of service that requires username and a password, then we need to, every time you use the credentials to retrieve the data.
You can get it once and store it in your gadget's data. That is possible. So, for example, if you have a mail reader kind of an application, you can check if the user has logged in. User had given the data at least once. If he hasn't given the data, show the prompt and save the data locally. So we provide APIs to store the data locally in a secure fashion, and we provide APIs to do the network connectivity. So you will have the username password. You will do the login every time, but the user will only enter it once. Right.
Suppose I'm writing on stock option gadget, so want to get the Sensex points in each and every day. I mean, how often the refresh rate will be?
It is up to the gadget itself. So there are a few which do which get latest information once every minute, once every 3 minutes. Some which get information once every 10 seconds. So it's up to your own. But a good it will be good if you respect the user's bandwidth and do things accordingly rather than keep using the bandwidth very frequently. But that is up to the gadget.
And I'm writing on English dictionary application, writing application.
Okay.
So I can't have the entire quotum in word base. So can I use an external word? I mean, the list of wordings available.
Yeah, that is definitely possible. You can have a web service which actually gives you the data on demand.
Right.
So
any metadata about the database structure, schema, okay.
So the API directly doesn't provide a database locally, but there are articles showing how you can use SQLite as a backend for your database, for your gadget in the local machine. So you can look it up in the documentation page which Rajesh pointed out. There is one article which shows how to use SQLite.
Okay. In the introductory speech, Prashad told about gadget user rejects also, but I haven't told anything about Ajax.
Rejects even?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ajax. In this case, I think, you are using JavaScript, you are using XML HTTP request, that is Ajax.
Yeah,
it's just that you don't use HTML. Yeah, HTML for the UI is not there. XML is there for the UI. That's the only difference.
So the XML HTTP request, that's Ajax.
My question is, this gadget lightweight process. Suppose if I am unlocking from my desktop, whether it will be listed in the process manager.
So the question was whether they will be listed in the process manager when you undock a gadget. No, they won't be listed. So they are all part of a single application, Google Desktop.
So if we close Google Desktop,
right. So Google Desktop is like the runtime for gadgets. Yeah. So it's like opening multiple documents in MS Word. If you close MS Word, everything goes away. It's like that.
Thank you.
You've been waiting for a while.
Yeah, one question on the communication API. So is there any plans to tie that up with OpenSocial itself? Because it looks like discovery and social network and everything. So
yes, there are a lot of developers who have asked for that. We don't have an official announcement on that yet.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's something which many people have been asking for a long time.
Okay.
And OpenSocial itself is not complete yet. It's in 0.8 right now. So there is a lot of scope to do more work on that and get it also to the desktop.
So what's the version of the Gadget API?
Gadget API is right now on 5.8.
5.8.
So it's been out for like 3.5 years now, and many versions. Yeah. Rate conversion. Yeah. Right. 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 So the gadget itself is like Rajesh mentioned, it's a zip file. So you can unzip the gadget file with the .gg which you download from the server, unzip it in your zip program, and you can look at the source code. Many gadgets, what they do is they provide a customization option in the options dialog. So if you go to the gadget menu and click options, you will see options dialog where you can customize the sources. Some gadgets don't allow that, in which case you can unzip the code, make the changes in the code itself, and run the gadget for your local needs. Generally, if the gadget is written by someone else, you would want to respect their IP and not modify some parameters and distribute it as a new gadget. But if it is completely for your personal needs or just a handful of people who use this gadget and you are giving it to them, then it's okay to unzip the code, make changes, and use that. Yeah.
Other than Android, does it run on other smartphones?
So gadgets don't run on any phones as of yet. That is also another, not even Android. So Android has its own developer platform. It's based in Java. So we don't have gadget support in Android yet, but that is also another feature which developers have asked for. No announcement on that too.
Interestingly, you have talked about the integration with App Engine and the OpenSocial APIs, but how about Google Gears? Because you talked about integrating with SQLite and all such functionality.
Yes. So Google Gears, this is a question which comes up very often. Google Gears is aimed at extending the browser. So the security model for using Google Gears and all that are heavily browser-based, heavily domain-based. So you can't, for example, if you store data for a particular website through Google Gears, you can't access it from another website, right? So even though it is the same browser process and all that. So Gears takes care of segregating the data and maintaining its secure fashion.
So we have a couple more minutes. We request the feedback phones. And
yeah, we can talk about it. We'll talk more questions after the session.
Yeah.
So with respect to this, we don't have any way of using Google Gears, sharing data between gadgets and Google Gears for the same reason, that security is of importance. And for example, if you have a website like, let's say MySpace, storing your data through Google Gears, you shouldn't be allowing a client application to access that MySpace